successful. But yet we also have to start with the premise that while even in this country and even in this city, what we would like to certainly present is a land that provides for infinite possibility. Our populations are torn by inequality. And unless that we understand, sort of the racism and classism institutionally in particular that continues to exist on many levels, even in cities that are as progressive as San Francisco, then if we don't see that, then we're not sort of connecting, I think, the dots to exactly why we continue to suffer high poverty rates. And if you look at the way they calculate poverty in San Francisco, unless it's a slight tweaking for the cost of living for San Francisco, in the federal government's eyes, it's the same dollar amount as it would for Mississippi. It doesn't make any sense. And that, in light of the very reality of what we have to live with, plus people are coming out of the prison system, and according to the Little Hoover Commission for California parolees, only 2 out of 10 actually decide to access services, and of that population, 50% are illiterate, and of that 50% illiterate, only 10% have decided to only participate in literacy labs. Then in a tsunami-like social crisis and economic crisis, it then just comes tumbling down in local government's lap, which is why I like this idea of creating a Department of Reentry, because what it does is it consolidates everybody who needs to be held accountable. And it allows all of us to use with sort of the fishbowl kind of lens to make sure that those who are accountable are doing their job. It doesn't make sense that the adult probation department, per adult probation officer or juvenile probation officer, may have anywhere of a caseload between 100 to 200 per officer. What good are they going to do with a caseload like that? We've already hit sort of a paralyzed state. And what good is it if we're passing laws in the local government that really might seem simple and meaningful, but yet really doesn't effectuate the intended goal of like trying to get our people hired in sort of areas of employment where there is crime-impacted communities that correlate sort of with the impoverishment of a community, and yet we're not providing incentives to those employers. Well, I think we can get creative about that. I like the idea of us trying to not necessarily always rely on, the strong works of goodwill or of other agencies to help place people, but where's the local government's responsibility in saying, you want to set up business in San Francisco? Well, we'd like you to hire some people who are formerly incarcerated. And provide incentives that I think that would actually help make people feel positive in all ends. In fact, recently, several months ago, I visited our state employment offices, the EDD, and I asked them this question about something that I've been very curious about, and that is that there's actually bonding, a surety bonding, that is provided for employers who would hire somebody who's formerly incarcerated. So I looked at the inventory, just out of curiosity, actually how many surety bonds had been solicited by employers in 2006. Now we're in the coming to the 10th month of 2006, and in San Francisco, 5 were all, just 5. Now 5 in a city where we have 1,500+ parolees, any thousands of others of probationers, and when we look in kind of an unemployment rate, especially in areas that correlate with high crime in itself, something has failed in the system. So I said, okay, let's quit relying on EDD. Maybe perhaps in San Francisco, we'll pick up the pace, look for some mechanism that allows so that the city tries to incentivize to employers that you'll hire this person who's formerly incarcerated, and if you're a little apprehensive, then we'll also try to find a mechanism that gives you that assured and guarantee so that you don't feel that that risk is only unilaterally shouldered. And those are the kind of programs that I believe that together with everything that's been shared up here is exactly why I think that we can make the inroads. But to make those inroads is to speak honestly about the socioeconomic conditions of the very cities we live in. And those conditions that also, of course, are going to compound the handicaps of those who are coming out of the prison system and knowing the high walls that they have to face. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for about 4 questions, and keep in mind we'll have a networking opportunity later. Now, when I say questions, we have an open mic here. When I say questions, I mean questions, not speeches, not autobiographies, just questions. And so, again, we only have time for about 4 or 5. Before we do that, I'm going to ask if any of the panelists have any comments that they'd want to make. D.A. Harris?